So the name of this session, as you all know, is Children, Adolescent and Youth, Mental Health, a Human Right for Climate Justice. The discussion will be around ecosystem. I can see my colleague Luigi is also here. I will just launch the video and give you the floor.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm Lubna Dajani, Chair of Catalyst Now USA Chapter and Managing Director of Alternate. It is my honor to welcome you to the inaugural day of CCW2025, a day dedicated to mental health, well-being, and the undeniable role of
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Can you hear the video?
I can hear you, but not the video.
Yeah, the sound's not working.
Louis, I think that we have a tech issue.
Yeah, we can see you, Bitu, and we can hear you,
numbers
but not
only
really.
stand to remind us.
Okay, so yeah, it's breaking up, Louis.
it's okay.
Do you want me
So
to
welcome.
share the slides?
Welcome everyone. Welcome to the session. So the first rule of this session is to have fun. We're going to be discussing a very high burden issue. And I truly appreciate your time to be here and hope to co-create together with you guys what can we expect and what can we define in terms of high impact mental health ecosystem. And to talk a little bit of Catalyst, I would like to call my friend Luigi. Buongiorno, Luigi.
Buongiorno everyone, wherever you are, and ciao Beto.
Buongiorno.
So I'm very happy to be here today to kickstart Catalyzing Change Week, and Beto kindly asked me to introduce Catalyst to the one that doesn't know. I think that you know what Catalyst is, and we can go in the details about our community of 50 amazing people became more than 6,200 around the world today. But keeping the provocation of Beto, it's not about the social innovation, it's about the beautiful soul that today is gathering, thinking that there are going to be other beautiful souls around the world thinking about solving other problems. So today, the topic is the following. We are focusing on one of the biggest challenges of our generation. As you know, and we have experts here, like at a certain point, UNICEF, WHO say that mental health is affecting more than 1 billion people around the world. And it's quite a number if we consider that we are around 8 billion people in the world. So technically, every one of us has a mental health issue. I am the first one. I'm a musician aside of like working with Catalyst, and I try to use music, so art, to try to keep pace with the accelerated time that we have right now. What I think is important for today is to understand that Catalyst is a platform of action. And every one of you that is here, it's not just here to listen, but to co-create. So creativity is the essence of Catalyst, and this is what we use as a tool for high impact ecosystem. So imagine as a game, Taboo, you remember the game Taboo, that you can say something, but you cannot use some words. So today you cannot use the word sustainability, resilience, like reliability, accountability. You need to create different words and different way of describing how we are going to solve these challenges together, so that we can next year convene again and talk about not the mental health problems, but the mental health solution that we're going to provide together. Beto, the space is yours. Welcome to Catalyzing Change Week, and enjoy it as much as you can, because creating a better world is something important that needs to be joyful in the process and not something painful. Thank you very much.
Luigi, why this rule? Why can I do my whole presentation is all about resilience? Thanks so much, Luigi. So everyone, now we're going to be doing a little bit of exercise. So this is a co-creation session in which time is precious for us. And I do want to have everyone engaged and everyone participating accordingly. So to start, we're going to be dividing ourselves into breakout rooms. And the key question for us to be discussing in 1 minute per person group is, for you, what is a high impact ecosystem? Which are the elements that defines a high impact ecosystem? So the challenge is on. You too can use the words resilience in your discussions. But once on the big room, try to follow Luigi's rules. Okay. I'm gonna be asking. So we have the clock. It's running, so you can all see that we have the clock, and we're gonna be adjusting the talks according to the time that we have. So we have a full panel with very interesting cases, with very interesting proposals, but we will be respecting your time. And for that, let's break out rooms, let's discuss, and then come back, and then we follow on the agenda.
Beto, my dear, you're muted.
We keep doing them. We keep doing the same mistakes after like 5 years after Zoom Live. So I hope you guys had fun. We have great discussion. So we have my 3 minutes now just to elaborate a little bit on the first perceptions in our group. We talk about some key elements to define a high impact ecosystem, which are interconnectedness, relationship, creativity, equity, and Sanjit, Matt, help me. What I'm missing?
Oh, I think we talked about regenerative
Relationship.
justice too.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, Sajid. So relationship, interconnectedness, creativity, equity, and I think that
regenerative justice, I think, is the other thing that
regenerative justice. Nice. So who wants to go next? Any insights on that?
I can go, Beto.
Please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So Michelle and I were in the breakout session, and we talked about high impact ecosystem, forms when the participants or leaders just not think of their generation, but think of generations, that are maybe future generations and generations that may not have been existing yet. And they should have all heart and pulse of thinking through how systemically we can inspire change today, so that this systemic change can transcribe itself into many, many generations to come. And we talked about how mental health is critical, because if our generation is not feeling the right pulse on mental health, then the future generations are definitely not going to have, these, and I'll use the word resilience here, the the emotional fabric to deal with the ups and downs of life. So it's very important for everyone in the high impact ecosystem is to think beyond their generation and beyond the short-term goals, and think long-term how sustainable systemic change can be achieved. And that's how we were talking about how Trust Circle is introducing 2 to 3 minutes of self-reflection time in classrooms, where teachers are getting to that behavior shift and inspiring that change.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sachin.
Yeah.
So, any other insights? Guys, like to share?
Can jump in. Maybe we had some insights in our group. We talked about the evolution of each individual in this ecosystem, and also working in collaboration with the beneficiaries, if we can say that. Somehow, diversity and inclusion would be our keywords.
Thank you so much, Marcia. Last minute insights? No? Okay, guys. So to move on in our agenda, I would like to invite.
Bitu. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my electricity. You know, here's a load shedding. It's also, you know, technology.
You're always losing everything, Shukan, including your electricity.
Because I'm from the south of the world, you know, so that's why you are suffering from climate, from technology, from everything. Okay, Bitu. So we had discussed about the collaboration, partnership, and linkages development. Although, you know, we didn't understand the technology, how we use it properly, but we had a little bit discussion about how we can make the ecosystem impact in terms of doing a collaboration, partnership, and linkages development around the world for a sustainable development, for sustainable ecosystem.
Thanks so much,
Thank you.
Shukan. So thank you so much, guys. Let's move on because time is short. So to this next phase of our discussions, for us to think and reflect about the initial chat that we had, I would like to call my great friend Marcela Arruda, that just hosted an amazing exposition here in São Paulo, Brazil, on the Bienal from Architecture. And we are collaborating in a project actually to design sustainable financing platform for support communities, organizations, artists, and connects funders and the communities with the pillar of mental health in its center. But we are deconstructing a little bit the concept of how we relate to mental health, because we have a lot of stigma on the word itself, mental health. So the invitation that we are bringing is for us to reconnect with actually the sum up of the discussions that we just had about high impact ecosystem and how traditional knowledge, how indigenous and ancestral knowledge should be reconnected into this language and framing about what is a good life. So Marcela, the floor is yours, my friend. I know that you are in a very terrible place, but please.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Beto, for the invitation and the opportunity of sharing a bit with you guys on what we've been discovering around how to create and how to foster relationships amongst different actors, aiming to mental health, but throughout art and culture and multiple languages and ways of expression. So we've been researching multiple projects that operate in the sense of mobilizing people throughout art production, throughout different ways of expression, such as performance, but also interventions and movies. So how to actually produce new narratives and foster new ways of not only raising awareness of climate change, but also of producing other possible roads in the middle of this crisis we are in. So really trying to create more regenerative experiences so that people can face and can foster other possible roads. So maybe I wanted to share some examples. I'm gonna open here to share with you guys that we've been talking about, and please, Beto, help me with the time. But I cannot share. I asked for permission. Yeah. Great.
You should be able to share now.
Great. So are you seeing it?
Yes.
So it's in Portuguese, but I'm gonna talk and translate a bit. So how do we understand interventions, artistic interventions, and how can they actually gain life and have not only a political, a social, but an ecological sense? So this is a beautiful project. It's a kind of a riot manifestation in Brazil called Reviravolta de Gaia, so the turning of Gaia. And it shows a lot of different actors from extractivism, so the anti-capitalist fights, but also mining, and also different kind of exploitations, but at the same time it shows ways out of this situation. So the indigenous lands, the environmental revolution, the enchanted beings of the forest. So really trying to mobilize throughout making these costumes of multi-species costumes, and create kind of reforest our imagination, right, of the possibilities of relationship with the world and its beings. And in that sense, we call it kind of eco-artivist practices. So we do believe that it's really important to create community throughout different and frequent encounters where people can, for example, make embroidery and talk together, or they can dance together and kind of create other ways of belonging and building community to sustain this emotional fabric that was mentioned before. And it can be done not only in kind of community and closed spaces, but also in public spaces. So in Brazil, we have a big kind of heritage, I would say, of the from 2013, all the citizen and public space occupation that we had in São Paulo, in Belo Horizonte, and not only like people producing culture, but also producing more resilient and regenerative environments, such as building pocket forests in the middle of the city. So really trying to kind of open the spaces of possibility in the middle of the craziness of the really kind of controlled life in the city, and opening kind of throughout devices of relationship and of creativity, new storytelling and new experiences. So I don't know about the time. Let me see here. Okay. And in a way, it's really beautiful to see how these entanglements with different communities, so not only in peripheral context, but also with indigenous communities that bring a relationship with food, with the land, and ways of kind of re-enchantment, but also involvement with the earth and with the territories. And especially here in Brazil, I see here we have a lot of people from different countries, but the relationship to food is a really important ritual and really intrinsic in our culture. So sharing food and cooking together, it's really powerful in that sense of expressing the multiplicities of identities, of culture, and really building not only self-esteem, but also more resilient kind of ecosystem in terms of where this food comes from and where it goes afterwards as residues. And of course, Carnaval. So really understanding also music as an important way of expressing and of revealing, for example, here, the hidden rivers of the city, as you can see in this bloco de Carnaval. So in terms of, we believe that this kind of ways of involving people and building narratives, they can raise awareness of, for example, the rivers, that they are alive, that they are going through these environments, these landscapes, and kind of help in this fight for protecting them against mining, for example. But we do also understand that it's really necessary to kind of talk to people who are not most of the times who don't see because it's too far away, right? So how do we also occupy spaces of like in the middle of the city and bring this narrative to people who actually don't access it? So also this is a beautiful work by Mundano, an artist that collected the dust from the forest burning in the Amazon and built this graffiti art in São Paulo, actually showing how important are those people like from the Amazon that were actually fighting against the fires, right? So raising awareness and also understanding that throughout this process we can change culture. We can kind of understand that, yeah, we can change habits and ways of relating to the environment and to the elements that are there. So I think it's a bit on that I wanted to share. So in a way, it's like, how can we understand in a more systemic and complex approach how more artistic practices can actually foster benefits of well-being for communities, of income generation for also more vulnerable territories, and trying to kind of foster this solidarity, but also creative ecosystem where we can not only forecast these narratives of anti-extractivism and also climate justice, but also try to kind of strengthen ways of expressing that are from specific identities and cultures in the whole world, right? So I would say it's a bit on that, and please, Beto, continue.
Thank you so much, Marcela. So the idea is not complicated. It's just for us to return to our roots and make it a public policy and elaborate financial sustainable mechanisms to have this capacity building approach and strengthening your social fabric. And to do that, we do believe that the catalyzing elements to make that happen is these intergenerational connections that we want to be fostering. And the youth actually are great actors that we need to be engaging. We do know, and if you guys do not know, but unfortunately, suicides among child, adolescents, and youths, unfortunately, is rising worldwide. So if we are building a world in which kids prefer to take out their lives in order to escape or in order to run away from the reality, then we are really messing up in terms of the world that we are building. And to foster this participation of young people, we are in a collaboration with the Imprensa Jovem movement, and I would like to ask Carlos and also Paulo from the Viração, which are groups that works with edu-communication and support kids, adolescents, and youths to be these voices of the communities. Carlos and Paulo, if you are here and want to be presenting the work that we are intending to do at COP and the G20 and also present yourselves, please, the floor is yours. Carlos, Paulo? No? Anyone from Viração or Imprensa Jovem? Okay. So I know that we have some youths here, and I would like to call them perhaps Mateus, Murilo. Are you guys on the call? Can you hear me?
Yes, Beto, we can hear you.
They cannot hear me though. Okay. So we had last year we started at the G20 a movement called Children in G20. So we worked throughout the G20 in Brazil political incidence agenda in several working groups from the C20, the CCW20, which gathers several groups from education, health, human rights, and several others. And the G20, you have these negotiations of the working groups, and then each group presents its policy paper. And we realized on the mid of the discussions that unfortunately children and adolescents were completely obliterated on the final documents that were proposed. Given that situation, we formed this coalition called Children in G20 that gathered several organizations that realized the same perspective. And we joined the Children in G20 with the proposal to strengthen meaningful participation and the protection of children and adolescents' rights. And to talk a little bit of this process that we have throughout the G20 in Brazil, I would like to ask my colleagues Catarina and Karina that joined this movement from the beginning, and also Paula Alegria from Plan International, that built this path together with us, and we had several activities implemented throughout the G20 in Brazil, and we had a great information a couple of weeks ago that the Children G20 became an official policy working group for the South African presidency. So this initiative shows that this collective engagement and the alignment for these purposes actually paid off. And now we have the opportunity to raise the voices and open the spaces for children, adolescents, and youth to be representative, at least on the discussions for the G20. When with no further ado, I would like to introduce my good friends that were engaged into this process, for them to present a little bit of their work and also to tell a little bit more about this beautiful story that we are building together. So who wants to go first? Perhaps you, Karina?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. And thanks, Beto, for the invitation. And I think Paula and I can share here the space to tell you how the process was to build the first ever participation of children and adolescents in the G20 last year in the Brazil edition. So we started off with several challenges and the assessment that children had not yet participated meaningfully in the G20. So we built a strategy as a coalition. Our coalition is called Crianças no G20, Children in G20, assembling about 30 organizations from Brazil and abroad, and international organizations also based in Brazil. I was representing Save the Children as Director of Advocacy, Partnerships and Communications of the Brazil office. And together with Plan International, Alana Institute, So Be Good, and so many other organizations, it would be great to mention all of them, but later on you can check out our website. I think Beto can share that with you all, so you can have an idea of how many organizations were engaged to create this joint work. And Paula and I were coordinating a global consultation with children, and I'll let Paula talk about this topic, about the global consultation, and later on I can add about our engagement with the South African government to ensure a formal space of participation for children and adolescents in the G20. And our efforts were so successful that now there is an engagement group dedicated to children and adolescents in the G20, which is also a milestone that had never been achieved before. So Paula, over to you on the consultation.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you, Beto. I am Paula Alegria, the advocacy advisor at Plan International Brazil. We had the pleasure last year to work closely with Save the Children, So Be Good, Alana Institute, and many other organizations for the children in G20, which was a Brazilian articulation to guarantee that the rights of the children and adolescents were mentioned in the negotiations and also in the leaders' declaration. About our consultation, we, Plan International Brazil and also Save the Children, conducted a global consultation with 1,500 children and adolescents from 60 different countries. And in the G20 Social Summit, we launched a letter written by children and adolescents who made part of in the global consultation. And this document reflects the voices of children and adolescents and lists to be priorities, such as climate change, fair economies, combating hunger and poverty, global governance, and gender and racial equality. I have just shared the link on our chat here, so you can take a look at the documents we published last year. Not only the policy pack was a huge exercise conducted by the organizations that took part in the Children in G20. And the policy pack compiled the coalition's recommendations to ensure that children's rights were included in the negotiations. And one of its core themes were mental health in the policy pack, underscoring the importance of civil society mobilization to ensure that this issue became a priority on the negotiation agenda. But also what we could conclude from our global consultation is that mental health is part of other types of inequalities and violences. So when we were talking about racial inequalities or gender inequalities or hunger and poverty, topics around mental health were also raised during our consultations. So you can take a look at these materials on the chat. And also we had maybe Karina can also talk a little bit about this, but on the G20 Social Summit last year, We organized a high-level event with the presence of ministers and also representatives from the government from South Africa. And I will go back to you, Karina, to talk a bit about this.
Great.
And its relation with the current articulation in South Africa as well.
Thank you, Paula. So our main objective was to get a commitment from Brazilian authorities as well as South African authorities to ensure a continuation of children and adolescents engagement in the G20. So we organized a high-level event at the G20 Social, bringing the Brazilian Ministry of Development and Social Assistance and the Minister of Human Rights as well as the G20 Sherpa for Brazil. And we had social civil society representatives, the coordinator of C20 in Brazil, the Civil Society Engagement Group. And the main challenge was to secure the participation of a South African authority. We sent out many letters and WhatsApp messages and no confirmation until one day prior. During the C20 summit, we were able to meet with the G20 coordinator for South Africa, and he promptly accepted to participate in our event. And there at the high-level event, children who were representing all the 50,000 children consulted in our consultation process, they demanded for the establishment of a formal space of participation for children and adolescents in the G20. And he made a formal commitment of pushing that agenda forward in this edition, in this year's edition. And ultimately, it happened. Last month, October or end of September, South Africa announced that an engagement group had been established. Our demand was to have either a discussion group on children and adolescents within the civil society engagement group, or better than that, having a dedicated engagement group for children and adolescents. And that's what happened. So we built a process of talking to our civil society colleagues who are starting to get engaged with G20 already by July last year. So we could already try to build this process. And in the end of the year, we got in touch with the authorities and got their commitment. So it shows us how important it is to build processes that are not concentrated in a one-time show or a one-time event, right? We don't want just to have children and adolescents on the media or achieving a milestone, but we want it to continue. It has to be permanent. And by sensitizing our civil society colleagues in South Africa and also the South African government, we were able to facilitate, to plant the seeds for a huge process that is happening right now. There will be not only an engagement group established, which is already operating, but also a summit for children and adolescents in the G20, which is even bigger than what we were able to organize last year. And Beto also built a process of already engaging civil society colleagues in the US. So we have, and also Australia, so we have continuation in the next editions of the G20. So that's the experience that we would like to share of how we need to build processes that are permanent. Thank you, Beto.
Thank you so much, Karina. And this showed the power of ecosystem and not ecosystem. And it was amazing to have this collective engagement, and paying outs are being shown, but we still have a lot to be done. So the process that we are launching in this meeting actually is to have this people coverage, to bring the climate finance discussions from COP to the social agenda at the G20, and leverage this Global South United together with India, together with Africa and Southeast Asia, to connect these messages to effective commitments. And an important organization also grew throughout this process, which is CLICA. So I would like to invite Catarina, that represents Arboris Vivas, and also participated in this process of the G20, but also with the activities from CLICA. So Catarina, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, hi guys. So my name is Catarina. I work in Instituto Arboris Vivas, and last year, CLICA, which is the Coalition for Climate, Children and Adolescents, worked in the G20 with the children, and I'm just gonna say a little bit how it was, the process. The children came to the G20, the social G20, and we did some games with them. We planted trees of Pau Brasil, which is the symbol of our country. We did sensibilizations with nature. So everything to make the children feel part of the climate action in a fun way. And it was really nice to see that all these organizations came together to make the children really participate there and be a part of this world that sometimes they don't even know how to get to these things in their daily life. And we could bring the things that everybody, all these organizations, they could bring in some different ways. So yes, we could make a very nice group of people that really are engaging with children in different ways. So I think that represents how CLICA and all these organizations can collaborate, because sometimes we think we don't do the same things, but at the end, all the little things that each one does can help to build something together that would never be so good if it was only one organization. So that's the power of CLICA, for example, and this bringing together all these organizations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catarina. And now we are connecting with this agenda for the COP30. So several of us here should be in Belém. So the idea for us is to work to have the voices of children, adolescents, and youth, but also elders, to be heard at the negotiations. So we are forming this press room for the COP30 and the G20, something that I will be calling for action later today. But the idea is to connect the Buen Vivir concept, which is this concept created from the traditional and indigenous communities in Bolivia and Ecuador and Peru in South America, which connect us to live within the environment and back to our roots, which is quite similar to the concept, and I don't want to be culturally appropriated, but the concept of Ubuntu, in which I am because we are. So we are intending to have these initiatives resonate on the discussions, especially on financing, so we can build together financial mechanisms in order to have the systemic support for resources to the communities. And to make this leverage into the global level, I am also part of Global Mental Health Action Network, which is a mental health advocacy initiative that gathers more than 6,000 members throughout the world. And collectively, we also launched a short-term action group for the G20 in Brazil, but now for COP30 also, in which we are joining forces in order to have mental health established in all policies and to grant mental health for all. And one of the initiatives that Global Mental Health, together with United, supports is the Being Initiative. But to talk a little bit about the Being Initiative and a little bit of Origin, which is one of the benchmarks that we have in terms of initiatives to protect children and adolescents' rights and to protect mental health as a human right, I would like to ask Nataya to join us. And Nataya, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Beto.
You have 5 minutes, my friend.
No problem. I'll keep it quick. It's really lovely to be here. I think in this segment, and I think builds off on some of the incredible work done around children in G20, which is very exciting work. I thought I would draw upon maybe 3 things today. I think when we think about a rights-based approach to mental health, I work for Origin Global. Origin is the largest translational research youth mental health organization. We're really all about creating knowledge and translating that. And one of the big pieces around that, I think, is tapping into the evidence base, which I think is something that was brought up in my discussions at the start of this session. And one of the things that we looked at a few years ago with the World Economic Forum was a global framework for youth mental health. And it's looking at these principles that we need rapid, easy, affordable care, that we need it to be specific to young people, that we need it to include awareness, engagement, and integration. We need a focus on early intervention, a focus on partnership with young people, a focus on engagement of families and supporting them, having a culture of continuous improvement, and a focus on prevention. So when we think about some of those principles in theory and what they look like in practice, I think there are probably 3 examples that I'll bring to life today. The first, Beto, you mentioned it, is the Being Initiative, which Nicole from GCC I saw is also in this virtual room today, which is all around how do we bring young people who are the closest to the issue, which is mental health, really at the center and being in the lead. And that's through through understanding the drivers of mental health, through investing in innovations in youth mental health, and being able to then translate that into mobilizing national ecosystems. And so I think that's one really great initiative that is able to translate all of those key principles into driving sort of more systematic change. And then I think the second, which we've heard today, is how do we systematically and meaningfully embed a few of those principles, youth partnership and being youth specific, and a focus on early intervention into the way that we create change and make decisions. And I think there are a few ways that we've done this. In particular case studies. I think first, in terms of there are key issues at the moment, for example, like AI and digital technology, and how do we support young people's mental health. In Australia, for example, which is where I'm based, there's been a social media ban actually for children and young people under 16, which is not resonated with young people within our communities, and rather through consulting young people and partnering with young people, actually what we've found is that isn't something on their agenda, but rather they want to promote the transparency of how these tools are used to be able to increase regulation and increase education around digital literacy and AI. The second example of sort of what youth partnership can result in is in relation to a peer workforce. As we've talked about before, we want to partner with young people and see their leadership in the mental health workforce grow and grow, which is so important to be able to support young people's mental health. And one of the ways that we can do that is through partnering with young people in the development of policies, whether that's a space at high-level events or whether that's through a methodology we've used called policy labs, where we're bringing together different government departments, different civil society organizations led by young people, also international agencies and social enterprises to be able to discuss key mental health recommendations. And so a recent policy lab that we ran together with young people in Malaysia saw that they want to see three things in terms of peer work. First, to increase collaboration, to maximize the co-development of youth-focused services with young people, to incorporate peer work and peer support into mental health services, and to involve young people with a lived experience in promoting resources and services, which I think are three really concrete recommendations that demonstrate how when we partner with young people, we are able to produce recommendations that are implementable and that will drive change in the way that young people engage with services and how some of those global framework principles are embedded as well. I think the last note that I probably wanted to leave on is in relation to sort of what now and what next. I think we have a vision around the inclusion of mental health and youth mental health within the global agenda, which we saw in the 4th high-level meeting on NCDs and mental health. I think that it's time to turn that political commitment into continued action and implementation in our communities. And so back to you, Beto.
Thank you so much, Natalia. So we want to be pollinating this global hive, and to continue the discussion, I'd like to call Nicole. Nicole, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be able to go right after Natea. It's a very nice kind of lead in. I've got a couple slides if that's okay, if I'm just going to share my screen. You folks can let me know what you see.
Yes, it's loading.
It's loading?
Yeah.
Let me know if you see the right view.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I wanted to just briefly speak a little bit about, I'm from Grand Challenges Canada. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with us, and hopefully again, you're all seeing the right kind of slide here, but Grand Challenges Canada is a global impact investor and an innovation platform, and our goal is to support bold ideas that have the potential to save and improve lives in underserved communities. And so specifically, we fund and support the scale of innovations that improve health and well-being in the Global South. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how we do that. So as an impact first investor, we launch thematic funding calls and provide catalytic financing through a range of different financial instruments, everything from grants, debts, concessional loans, equity. And we really want to think about how we leverage our flexibility as a funder to attract additional investments across the catalytic stack. So how to strategically combine different types of capital to unlock investments in markets that may otherwise struggle to attract funding. So we really think about these types of investments and how they play a specific role in de-risking the opportunity to attract the next layer of capital. So that's whether sometimes we happy to take a first loss position, accept lower rates of returns or longer timelines for returns, all really about how our funding can mobilize additional pools of investment. So we see that our role at GCC is really about our ability to deploy catalytic capital and go first, thinking about how do we help pull in investors who may not be the conventional investors, public sector, and how we can structure and phase our funding to support this process. Our primary goal with our investments is impact. And so we have different types of funding. We have seed or proof of concept, who are really about how we support innovators to test new ideas, refine solutions. We move into transition to scale, where we also structure these over various different types to be able to best position the innovation and the organization for success. And also, and Natea touched on this briefly, but also thinking about ecosystem catalyst grants. So what else can we do in addition to innovation and project level funding to support the unlocking broader barriers to scale that may exist within a national or even a global environment? What is the thing that's really preventing these opportunities from being able to scale and be successful? Like I said, in addition to the catalytic capital, we also provide the tailored support. We work with Origin and team in our mental health work to support the innovators that we fund through a range of different opportunities and really tailoring to their unique needs. That can be everything from supporting setting up the right types of M&E systems for a specific project to be able to really demonstrate and showcase the type of impact that they're achieving, or supporting organizations to think about governance structures and organizational development. And then we also think about how we as an organization can support smart partnerships, how to connect the projects we fund to additional financial or strategic support within their environments. Just briefly, from a mental health side, at GCC, we've been funding in mental health since 2012. We've taken various we've ramped up and ramped down this area in the last few years. So you can see here the total value of our investments and the total number of investments we've made across 45 different countries. Just then briefly, with Being, our approach here is a little bit different, but just to give you a bit of a bird's eye view here, we spent about a year landscaping and working with local partners to really help us demonstrate what are the key barriers and challenges that young people were facing in this specific context where we were looking to fund. Being is funding in 12 countries right now, and we wanted the funding that we provided to be contextually relevant and to be responsive to local needs. So we work to say, what are the challenges? What are the specific drivers and issues that young people are facing? And what are the specific ecosystem barriers within these contexts that are relevant to these areas? And so each of the countries where Being is active in funding has its own specific challenge statement where we are looking to fund innovations and its own specific ecosystem barrier. So in Ghana, we're funding innovations to try to tackle bullying. In Sierra Leone, we're tackling innovations to try and tackle challenges with substance use and the Kush epidemic. So these are really quite contextually driven and meant to be locally relevant. Across that, we also look at how do we layer in stakeholder engagement and communications, and we work with United for Global Mental Health. How do we think about longitudinal research that's necessary? And there Being works with the Science for Africa Foundation. And then across all of this and all the funding that we provide, this programmatic learning and support. So how do we really try and leverage all the different tools at our disposal to support the work that we're trying to do at this both a national and a global level, and really thinking about all those different types of approaches that we take as an investor to be able to leverage our position in this space, crowd in additional investors, crowd in additional partners, and really try and support strengthening these ecosystems for young people's mental health and well-being in these different contexts. So I did that very quickly. But thank you so much. Really great to be able to talk more about this work.
Thank you so much, Nicole. We have the time today. Thank you so much. So to continue, I'd like to ask Matt to introduce about MHPSS collaborations and the beautiful work that they are doing on protecting children, adolescents, and youth and mental health human rights. Matt, are you on?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Hello. I'll be speaking. Sorry, Marie. So my name is Louise Hansen, and I'll be speaking on behalf of Marie because she has a voice that's not completely cooperating today. Can I share my screen or share a presentation? Yes. Where are we? Yeah, so sorry. So you are seeing my screen here. Oh my God, this is not working very well. I'll do this without sharing.
It's uploading. It was uploading.
It just started.
Oh, okay. I'll try again. All right, you're seeing it now, right? Are you seeing my?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
we can see it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I just spent 30 seconds or a minute of my time fiddling with technology. Wonderful. But anyway, thank you so much for letting me speak here. As I said, my name is Louise Hansen. I work at the MHPSS Collaborative, which is a global hub for research, innovation, learning, and advocacy in the field of mental health and psychosocial well-being for children, youth, and families. We're based in Copenhagen, and we're hosted by Save the Children Denmark. So I've been asked to talk about how we at the Collaborative connect meaningful participation and leadership for children and young people. And we do that in a lot of different ways, but I am going to share an example that's directly related to climate change to illustrate how we convene across many different settings to cast light on a subject with a wide range of insights and knowledge. And that is the co-creation of a climate practice framework. So last year, at the Nordic Conference for Mental Health and Psychosocial Support in Malmö, climate change and MHPSS was on the agenda. And a question that kept coming up was, yes, we understand that there's an important intersection between climate change and mental health, but what does that mean in practice? What interventions do we have, and how should we plan programs and interventions in this context? So we see the problem, but we need some practical solutions. And there aren't really a lot of obvious, clear answers to these questions. So 5 Copenhagen-based international organizations came together to work to produce a practice framework. Those organizations are the MHPSS Collaborative, the Red Cross Red Crescent Movement Hub for MHPSS, the Mental Health Youth Alliance, Danish Red Cross, and Save the Children Denmark. And the premise of this process was co-creation and representation of many different types of actors, including young people, both in the organizing committee and as participants. Everybody, all the participants had the common denominator of living or working in contexts that are heavily affected by climate change. And we designed three workshops, which were repeated in English, Spanish, and French. The multiple languages to make sure that we got as wide a representation as was possible within the language skills of the organizing group. So the first workshop focused on defining factors that are related to climate change and mental health. The second workshop looked at how those factors connect. And then finally, a third workshop started mapping existing interventions for MHPSS and climate change and inflection points and how. So when we look across all 3 language workshops, we had 11 overall factors that emerged in a very, very complex network of connections, which I think ties really nicely into this ecosystem conversation we had earlier today, because things are super connected and intertwined, and it's very difficult to look at. It's difficult to simplify something that's this complex, and you need to sort of take the whole ecosystem of climate change and mental health into consideration when you're planning for it. So we have this map of very, very diverse factors and interventions from a global perspective, and we hope that this can help shape the overall thinking about how we can provide mental health and psychosocial support in the context of climate change. But for it to come like really practical, this process can't be a one-off. It has to be done at local levels by and with affected communities to take into account local conditions and insights and resources and understanding and needs. We can't sit in Copenhagen and do that. And we need to get local, because the factors that are affecting how people are experiencing climate change, how it's affecting their mental health, are very, very local. So during the mapping of interventions, it was very clear that the participants, they put a lot of emphasis on interventions that were community-based, that are rooted in local traditions and local leadership. And the next step in this process is to focus in more on what interventions exist out there that live up to those intervention principles of community-based, local traditions, local leadership, and how they fit into this global framework, and how it can be translated into practical localized frameworks. So that was a very, very brief overview of a process or how we sometimes work. And
that's just sorry, please go on.
Yeah. So just finally, and I think Marie is adding some things into the chat, we are really interested in collecting examples of interventions that are being used from in the context of climate change. And we're still in the process of setting up a process for this, but if you do have interventions or programs that you're working with in context of climate change on MHPSS, please send us an email, and we'll follow up with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We will definitely be following up. This is just a small flavor for what we can be creating together. So to move on with the agenda, I think I would like to ask my dear friend Stephanie Vassilou, that was an inspiration throughout when she was at the Global Mental Health Action Network, these discussions around youth representativeness and the amazing work that she's been building at the Kids Help Phone. Steph, are you with us?
I'm with you. Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Beto. It's so great to be here. I'll just take a couple of minutes to share about some of the work that we are doing at Kids Help Phone in Canada, but it was also wonderful to hear about some of the updates with the Global Mental Health Action Network, and definitely encourage everyone to check out some of the links that Natea put in the chat, as there's some, they're great frameworks that anyone can use. So at Kids Help Phone here in Canada, we are essentially the country's largest 24/7 e-mental health service for young people that's free, multilingual, and confidential. So often when people think of us, they think about kids and the phones, since it's in our name. But a huge part of the work that we do is evolving to meet the needs of young people that are constantly changing, and also to keep up with how fast technology is changing too. And so, you know, when we think about our role in this area in mental health and the topics that we're talking about today, well, our purpose is that we unlock the hope that young people need to thrive in their world. And the way that we do that is developing this range of programs and services to be there for young people no matter what it is that they're going through at any point in time in their lives and at any time of the day or the night. And so when we first started as an organization 36 years ago, we were focused on being there confidentially for young people, specifically focused on child protection and abuse. And what the organization saw at that time, 36 years ago, was that young people were connecting with us about a wide range of different topics, many different things that could be causing distress. And so we wanted to be there for them because we saw that by having a confidential access point, young people could open up about whatever it was that they wanted to talk about. And we know, today in this conversation, climate and eco-anxiety, having that safe space to be able to talk and know that they can do so anonymously is critical. And so in 2018, we really shifted the way we thought about ourselves. We're a youth mental health charity, but essentially we changed it up to be more of a tech organization with a laser sharp focus on youth and mental health. And we developed a stepped care model at that time in 2018. And what that looks like in practice is we have different kind of steps that young people can access based on what they need at that time. So for example, health promotion initiatives, including programming in schools and communities, creating awareness of mental health and of help seeking, the different access points that exist to them for available support. But we also have interactive tools and resources. We also have on our website, and I'll put a link in the chat, resources specific to climate anxiety and climate change. And a lot of that work is in partnership with other organizations who really specialize on that topic. We also co-developed a peer support platform. It's all digital, and we worked with over 300 young people to develop that platform. And on that platform are a range of different forums and topics that young people can share what they're experiencing and know that it's all confidential as well, and they can interact with their peers about topics that relate to them. But I also just want to mention that we understand that for some young people, you might need an additional level of support. And so we have volunteer crisis responders who can provide single session support through texting or through online messaging. And we also have professional counselors. So a young person can call in and be connected with a professional counselor. And that's all confidential. For our texting support, what I think is really important to note is that it's confidential and anonymous. And to give you an idea of what has changed over the years, well, in 2019, we had 1.9 million interactions with young people. And since 2020, we've had over 21 million interactions. So over 4 million interactions a year with young people reaching out to us for support. But what I think is very critical to acknowledge, and this came up in some of the initial conversations my breakout group had, was really thinking about equitable access, thinking about the diverse experiences that young people have. And so for us, we really take a targeted approach where we have a team who focus on Indigenous youth. All of our initiatives are run by Indigenous staff members for Indigenous youth. We have a team who focus on initiatives for Black youth, and we have a team who focus on initiatives for newcomer youth as well, which is critical to really take that nuanced, targeted approach. So all of this work that I just spoke about, it's really fueled by our data hub. So we've talked a little bit about AI and technology and the role that plays and how we're here for young people today in this conversation. But what's important I wanted to just call on is through all of these interactions that we're having with young people, we're hearing their real words, the words that they're using to express their feelings. And I think for any of the work that we're doing, that's really critical. I often think about how a young person isn't going to call in or text in and say, "Hi, I'd like to speak with somebody about a clinical depression." They're going to use their own language, which is going to change and evolve over time to express their feelings. And it's important that we understand what those words mean so that we can refer people on to longer term support as well. And so through our data hub, we have over 50 million data points, all from aggregated de-identified transcripts with youth. And this information really helps evolve the services that we're developing, that we're improving, the products that we have for young people as well. So as I kind of wrap up, just to give a couple of examples, and I'll pop this in the chat as well, is we've really worked together with young people and we've leveraged this de-identified information to think about how we solve some problems, real world problems. So if we know that it's very difficult to navigate, service navigation is hard. We know it can be very hard to understand what services actually exist in a community. We wanted to make that easier. So we worked with young people to develop a database that has over 40,000 resources and services within it, all vetted by young staff members in our team. And so young people or caring adults can go on and they can find the types of service or resources that they might require within their own community, whether that's digital or in person. It's across the social determinants of health as well. And it's all vetted. And we also now have integrated mobile apps for young people, all vetted as well within the database too. But we also recognize that partnership is essential. And so if a young person already trusts another website or another service, we don't want them to have to leave that website to find this library of services on ours. So we've developed an embeddable widget that can be integrated on another organization's website. And basically on that website, they can, a young person or a caring adult can actually view the resources right there. And the last thing I'll say as well is being able to have that access to data. So we've layered that information from our resources around me database that I just spoke about. We've used that information. We've used Statistics Canada census data as well. And we've used our service data too to develop maps that we call service deserts. And it really helps us be able to visualize where there are and where there aren't services, where the need is based on what young people are telling us, and the census data as well from government. And this type of information is really critical to help actually inform our strategy, our decisions, and also to inform external stakeholders as well when it comes to making decisions. So there's so much more to talk about. For the sake of time, though, I'll leave it there and pop a few links in the chat. But I think that we know partnerships can be at times difficult to actually move forward with when it comes to resources and logistics and many different things. But I think finding those key partnerships to really accelerate work has been pivotal in the work that we've been doing, and we're looking forward to doing more of it in the future as well. So thank you so much, Beto, for having us today.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you so much. Thanks for the contributions. And it's amazing how Canada is moving forward and implementing public policies, integrating these different initiatives. And to resonate a little bit on models of educational systems, I would like to ask my friend Sanjit, that works for Green School, to have his perceptions about high impact ecosystems. And thank you so much, Sanjit, to be here. I know it's late for you now.
Great. No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And it's been a really great conversation. Yeah, greetings to you from Indonesia, where it's about 10:20 in the evening. So it's definitely on the later side. I'm, like Beto said, I'm Sanjit Sethi. I'm the head of campus at Green School Bali, which is a remarkable school that is in the jungles in Bali. We're a school which really is predicated on the fundamental belief that that students are uniquely capable of addressing some of the most pressing issues of our times if we give them the space and the opportunities to do so, and especially if you do so with a fundamental belief that the best environment that you can provide them with is that environment that really is at the intersection between regenerative design, creativity, and social entrepreneurship. And we see that as really being embedded within the Hindu philosophies that exist within the island itself of Bali, in a concept called Tri Hita Karana, which is basically about acknowledgement of the past and ancestry, acknowledgement of your environment and ecology, and acknowledgement of others. And so it's something that is not just a pie in the sky ideal. We're in an environment where our school itself has very few walls. It's mainly made out of bamboo kind of thatched huts, if you will. And at the same time, we're also an environment where we're currently building a regenerative design laboratory. We're also able to go ahead and do mycology research. We're doing a lot of work with working with how do we start to think about Bali turning into regenerative tourism, as it still knows that tourism is on one hand an aspect of the life's work or the intergenerational work that occurs in an economic driver on the island, but at the same time is not currently sustainable in its current form. So I guess my goal here is to see how do we go ahead and push some of the dialogues I've heard today, but also do it from a profoundly equitable lens, a lens of thinking about that planet health and mental health go in tandem with each other. One is not ancillary to the other. And this is where I'd say it's time for us to start to retire terms like sustainability more for probably a notion of regenerative practices or regenerative design, where we're going ahead and saying we're not there to save the planet, but rather to go ahead and work in concert with the planet, which is, I think, also probably one of the best approaches that we can start to think about working with mental health care as well. So I know we're short on time, but I'll leave it at that, and I'll put a couple links in the chat box.
Thank you so much, Sanjit. And also to reflect a little bit and showcase an example on how technology could be leveraging these relationships between mental health and youth. I would like to ask my good friend Sachin to talk a little bit about Trust Circle. Sachin, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen and I hope everyone can see it.
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you, Beto. Pleasure to be with this tribe of change makers and believers. So I'm Sachin Chaudhary, and I'm going to talk about Trust Circle, how we are inspiring systemic change, and the change that basically nurtures the student and staff mental health and well-being at scale. And Trust Circle is an AI-powered mental health platform that fosters prevention, early interventions at scale. What we need to talk about is that if we empower students and staff at scale, then we need to build solutions or innovations that are ed-safe AI compliant, building responsible and ethical AI that provides data-driven insights and gives analytics on engagement, attendance, behavioral trends, all in one place. That can also help unlock funding for districts and states. We have been able to reduce chronic absenteeism and improve attendance by 10 to 15% through the innovation and solution that deploys across any device, across regions, and seamlessly scales statewide, district-wide, even countrywide. We recently presented to the Ministry of Health in Zambia. But as a as a solution or as an innovation, the innovation cannot scale by itself. It has to grow through strategic partnerships. So we are honored to be have joined forces with Department of Hawaii, Department of Education, State of Hawaii, EdSafe AI, United Nations Development Program. We are their official Digital X solution. Pyramid Foundation, we're scaling to over 1 million students in India. Recognized at G20, UNICEF India, CEDA, COSIN, HBGI got recognized along with Harvard Medical School as one of the top innovations that are scalable, replicable, that empowers students, children, adolescents, and youth. Now, all this started with my journey that, if I sum it, it's a journey that is inspired by personal adversity, driven by passion, and fueled by purpose. My brother, which you're seeing in the picture, so this was taken in 1982, was bullied in school and had an emotional breakdown. And I'm in red here. My brother is still alive, but it has been 32 years almost. And nothing has changed in his life except meds. So family, teachers, parents mispicking early signs of risk, including me. And he was diagnosed eventually with mental health issue. What happened with my brother should never happen with anyone else is the force behind Trust Circle. And that's why we understand that mental health is a global challenge and one of the most pressing challenges we are facing, but students need connection at the local level. So schools are needing proactive, scalable, trusted solutions to support mental health. And imagine a solution which not only can help identify who's at risk. So imagine I'm a counselor. I start my day, I sip a cup of coffee, click a button on Trust Circle, and I'll know who's at risk out of my 2,000 students on campus. And I click another button and I can see why the student is at risk, whether it's a personal force, parents going through divorce, financial hardship, social, bullying happening on campus, or academic stress. What is the reason that's pushing the kid over the edge? And that's critical information which is missing right now. Systems are designed to be reactive, right? Once issue happens, then the solution or the trigger happens. But now, through the solution and the innovation, which is active in 4 countries right now, we've inspired a theory of systemic change, which is teachers introduce 2 to 3 minutes of quiet time in classrooms. And when teachers do that, students who are on the edge, at least 10% of them utilize Trust Circle and express their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And AI models pick up those patterns and identify who's at risk and why. So there are a lot of value creations through emotions logging, through journals, through insights, seeking help, students building circle of trust, express gratitude, experience mindfulness, rewards, recognition. And all of this is generating a lot of insight. So I'm not going to go all through this, but we've reached 1.5 million students in organizations like, UNICEF or, Pyramid Foundation or State Department of Education in Hawaii that we're, serving 200,000 students and staff. This is, if you Google UNDP Trust Circle, you'll find us. But, proud to be part of EdSafe AI, CEDA, which is State Education Technology Directors Association, HBGI Top 51 programs, along with Harvard Medical School, scaling mental health at that systemic level, got recognized at G20 Summit, Pyramid Foundation, scaling over 1 million students, K-12 across India. We've gone to the tribal regions where there's no computer at home, no device, no mobile device that students have. Only way students access this platform is through school labs. So we've redesigned the platform so that virtual IDs can be created and then students can access the platform. Joined forces with UNICEF, Ministry of Youth in India, won the Top Impact Company Award, and there was significant research study done by Carney, and then got selected as 14 Ashoka Fellows. We spent initial 5-6 years working with WHO Collaborating Center for Mental Health Research, where we introduced mental health assessments in schools and colleges. And through that, we joined forces with Warwick University and got funded and gotten recognized as an official partner of National Institute of Health Research right now. So it has been a journey where we've leveraged innovation that cuts across borders, that is available on any device, that introduces systemic change of 2 to 3 minutes of quiet time. Everything is voluntary. Teachers will never see students' data. Students know that in advance, and teachers are only introducing quiet time. They have no liability, no obligation. So when such an innovation is introduced, students open up, and this is the generation that we need to nurture, because this generation is our future. And these are the administrators in Malaysia, in California, in Hawaii, school counselors. This is what we're doing in tribal schools in India, where students are expressing why they feel connected, and there's a culture shift happening across campuses. So yeah, I'll pause here and stop sharing. But
Thank you so much, Sachin. This is amazing to see, because we do have solutions. So now the idea is, how can we adapt those solutions to the communities, and how can we foster it?
Yeah.
So
thank you.
last but not least, I would like to actually call 2 very dear friends. The first one will be Anya. The time is up. Sorry, guys, we had a stretched agenda, but we will continue the discussion with who might be interested to continue on. So I would like to ask Anya to talk a little bit about herself and what this organization does, and how she connected me to Catherine. Anya, are you there?
Yes, hi. I'm sorry for everybody being over the time, but this has been such a remarkable gathering, and it's so inspiring just to see all the work that's going on around the world. Climate Mental Health Network very much leverages existing connections and ecosystems. We work with teachers, we work directly to parents, we create intergenerational resources, and we work with Gen Z. We have a Gen Z advisory board, and it's all to raise awareness of the full spectrum of our emotional responses to the climate crisis. not just what we would call mental health problems, but also just the regular emotions that people feel. And we've released lots of different resources. We're probably best known for the Climate Emotions Wheel, which has been translated into more than 30 languages and used as a resource all over the world. And I wanted to give just a second of context about the way that we're thinking about our work in the political environment in the United States, because I think it's something that really is important to think about it in a network and in a global context. We are having problems saying the words climate change. That's something that funders are getting worried about. And the connection between climate change and mental health has been weaponized, where people who talk about the connection are accused of raising climate anxiety. And so it's been completely inverted in the political context that we're in. And so to adapt to that, we're being as laser focused as we can on youth well-being. We're talking about extreme weather. We're talking about the consequences of climate change that we see in our communities, and we're being as local as we can while also being as global as we can. And I would love to be in collaboration with all of you as we think through getting through this environment. The other aspect of it that's important to mention, I think, is the attention-based economy, right? Like, how do people even have time and energy to think about climate change when they're in the midst of political storms, the loss of freedoms, the loss of expression? So increasingly in my work, and that's in my writing and research, as well as in my work with Climate Mental Health Network, I think a lot about polycrisis. So the fact that these are all multiple interconnected crises, they can't be disentangled. And it's important that we are addressing the hierarchy of needs that people express. People aren't always going to come to you and say, I'm worried about the climate. A lot of people who are in more intense situations aren't thinking about climate change. They're thinking about their everyday needs. And so how do we make sure that we're standing for the empowerment of all different types of voices and the universal needs that we have for safety, for autonomy, for connection? That is everything I wanted to say. I'm just really grateful to be here.
Thank you so much, Anya. And Anya introduced me to Catherine. So Catherine, are you on?
I am on. Is it okay if I still share a few slides? I know we're very late here. We have a minute. I'll go quickly. We're here thanks to Anya, actually. She was an incredible connector for us with a number of organizations, including meeting Beto, who we've been working with. Can you see my slides okay? Does everyone see it?
Yes,
Beto? Yeah?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I wanted to share a little bit quickly about Future Chicken. And Future Chicken is a mission-driven story world that invites children 6 to 10 years old into the adventures of a time-traveling chicken and her planet-protecting friends who journey between present day and 2050 to demonstrate how small actions today that kids can do can create a healthy planet for tomorrow. So this is very different than what we've been talking about, but ultimately, this is a project because 25% of the world's population is kids, and they are 100% of our future. So it's really important that we talk about how can we connect with them in ways that counter the using storytelling to counter the eco-anxiety and the sense of hopelessness that they have been feeling about their future. And this project actually came out of ideas from children themselves, whom said to us that they really are looking for climate content that isn't just about everything bad, but solutions-based stories that are about what is being done and can be done to make a difference. So giving them information on how they can make a difference. And so that's how it came about. And the foundation of this project is based on deep conviction that when it comes to children and climate change, that there's nothing more powerful than evidence-based storytelling to inspire change and create a connection with kids in nature, the real world. And so we've created this media-filled world that is filled with humor and joy, and with the idea that it's going to help children imagine positive futures, and most importantly, give them a sense of agency and optimism. And so this is very much a character-driven world with a parasocial strategy at its core, that being that when kids connect with characters, especially those that are positive and hopeful, they're going to want to act like them, be like them, and make a difference. And this is what we've done so far, and I'm sharing it with all of you because it is available to be shared. We've created, we've gone to where kids are today on multiple story platforms and created a library of content filled with edutainment, and again, filled with all kinds of stories with characters, and it's written to be uplifting and evidence-based, with the strategy not to just talk about climate solutions, but to share important lessons and learnings to inspire kids to have conversations, curiosity, creativity in the real world, and encourage activation, but done in a way with lots of humor, because we feel that when kids are laughing, they're learning, and it helps them digest the solutions. And as I said, oh, actually, this is our SDG. The SDGs are interwoven into all of our storytelling. Each one of our characters has a thematic link. So there's different stories with, for each character, the themes of their stories have, say, about water or composting, all sorts of quality education, etc. So all of the characters tell stories that kids can connect to, but it's done all organically when it comes to SDGs. And we felt that was really important as we built this world. And fundamentally, kids have led us in our journey, our Future Chicken journey throughout the whole process. It was their idea from the start, and we've been using their feedback throughout the strategy. We're about 18 months young, so it's a very nascent project. And as we've gone, kids have shaped the character designs, the stories we've told. We use our technology to go into classrooms, and Future Chicken can talk interactively with the children themselves. We're also on the ground in a number of countries, including Cameroon, Pakistan, and of course, Brazil. We've been working with Beto and his team at Soul Be Good. And we're reaching children and teachers globally with tailored programs based on the region. And the idea is that kids can have an opportunity to engage, watch the Future Chicken videos. We're in Lahore, for example, in rickshaws, where we bring around tablets, and kids can watch the videos, and then they do echo activities that are really encouraging them to express, create, and lead in our program. So again, we're very fortunate to be a part of this today and to work with Beto, and we're looking for more partnerships to connect with all sorts of organizations on the ground around the world.
And I have the pleasure, thank you so much, Catherine, first to introduce to you all who is Future Chicken. Hugo, do you have the video?
Yes, 1 second, I'll just share screen here.
And also to announce that there's going to be a new character jumping around and pollinating around the Future Chicken universe, right, Catherine?
We're going to add a bee in, yes.
Soon we should have a bee to Future Chicken.
See my screen? Is it working?
Yeah.
Now? Perfect, okay.
No sound, Hugo.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't we send a link? That's why I decided to share the slides.
The presentation. Okay, so guys, we're going to be sending you an amazing video about Future Chicken and how it mobilized the school community here in Brazil for soil composting in an amazing journey that for sure you're going to love it. So last but not least, this whole initiative is about making commitments and making this global hive to be nurtured. And nothing will be following up without the voices of you and without the voices of the presidents of the youth at COP30. So I would like to ask my dear friend. I don't know if she's still in.
Yep.
Hi, Amalia. Amalia is part of the presidents of Youth Climate Champion. She's representing Marcelli that had another appointment at his craziness around COP. So Amalia, the floor is yours. Take your time.
Hi, everyone. So I'll start by introducing myself and introducing what it is that I'm doing and then what my team is doing. So my name is Amalia. I'm a young climate activist from the south of Brazil, and I'm part of Marceli Oliveira's team. For those of you who don't know, she's the COP30 Presidency Youth Climate Champion. She's the second person to ever hold this place at COP, and she is meant to represent youth in decision-making processes and in the COP30 presidency. But not only is she representing youth this year, she is making sure that youth participation is happening for a diverse youth from all over the world. So she went out of her way to create a participatory committee, which is what I am a part of, and a big team that represents all youth from Brazil so that we can work together to make COP30 a space for youth from all over the world. This is all part of this initiative called Mutirão. For those of you who don't know, Mutirão is at its core a community-based joint effort for something larger, something greater. And COP30 is pushing for this Mutirão in many different levels, but we are doing it for the youth with youth in mind. And so throughout this year, we've had multiple Mutirão actions with youth, with anything from planting trees to holding mini COPs, which we were actually able to fund on Children's Day in Brazil, activities that simulated the COPs, but were protagonized by children and teens. So this is a little bit of an example of this Mutirão. And with this joint effort in mind, we were also able to ensure children and youth were recognized and explicitly mentioned in the final texts of SB 62, in the agriculture and food and security text, the GGA, the just transition and gender texts. And this is important for us to not only think about children, but actively make decisions that consider children and youth, consider us, because I am a young person as well, as we all are in Marceli's team. We managed, after long discussions, to get accessible accommodations for youth during COP, and we are holding a City of Youth camp, which is free of charge accommodation at COP, which will serve not only as a space for youth to stay in, but as a space for capacity building and youth engagement. So we will have multiple activities happening there to ensure community building and conversations, and really make sure that the youth at COP feel well, that they're being taken care of. In the blue zone, we will have once again the Children and Youth Pavilion, which we all know is not only a space for events with the theme of children and youth, it's events by children and youth for children and youth. And not only that, it's a space for community where us young people can meet each other, can connect. And this year, we will also have a mental health space in this pavilion. So there will be a space in this pavilion dedicated for mental health, for children and youth to sit in and recharge in the middle of the hectic space that we all know COP is. On the 17th, the thematic day for children and youth, we will hold an event at this pavilion to speak to and listen to children in partnership with the COP presidency. And throughout COP, we will be pushing for this Mutirão, this joint effort that considers children and listens to children and actively tries to get everybody in these decision-making spaces, because that's what we have to push for, you know? And we will try to do this while keeping mental health in mind and as a basis for all of our actions. And so I invite you all to join us in this Mutirão, whether you're going to COP or not, whether your organization is all going to COP or not. This is something that we are pushing for during the next 3 weeks. But not only that, it's something for us to consider permanently in our actions. So how can we make big joint efforts that take action and participation of children and youth into account? And especially mental health, because as you all know, that's, key to doing everything. And so thank you very much, Beto. Thank you, everybody, for this wonderful event. It's key for us to talk about mental health, especially for us young people. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Amalia. Your speech gave me the goosebumps, the butterflies all around my belly. Thank you so much, everyone. I know that we passed a little bit of the time. That was a risk that I assumed when I set this agenda. But as Amalia mentioned, this Muchidom starts now, and it's not end at COP. It's not going to be ending at the G20. It's definitely this ecosystem that we are intending to gather in order to build for action. And action and implementation are the keywords that we are fostering through this people's coverage that we are setting at the COP30 for the G20. And I invite you all to take a look on the UN mental health flagship. This is a work that we have been doing together with the UN Youth Office, and together with UNICEF. We should be launching that soon. This is a draft that I'm sharing with you all for just to get more in contact with these elements of what is a high impact ecosystem, and these discussions should be moving forward. So at So Be Good, we are pleased to elaborate and connect these high impact ecosystems, and it will be following up discussions coming on. We have on Friday a session to elaborate on cases for innovative financing mechanisms for Asia Pacific and LATAM. We are starting this community of practices and learning ecosystems in LATAM, connecting this whole interesting cases that we all saw here today, but we do have to take our parts and mobilize our communities and give the young people the spaces, but not forgetting also our ancients, our elders that actually possesses and have the traditional knowledge that we want to be flourishing in order to reconnect our society to our common humanity roots. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you next time. We're going to be following up through email with some materials that we shared here, with some interesting links that you could be following up, and also with a formulary to evaluate if you guys are willing to be joining us to build this hive, to build this colmea that we just presented here. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and I love you all.
Thank you, Beto.
Thank you, Beto.
Awesome.
Thank you, Catalyst Now. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Beto.
Thank you, Shuka, my friend.
How are you, my friend? Beto.
I am alive and kicking still.
Oh, you are alive for the world. Whole world is waiting for you to see you.